welcome everyone. We have a pretty good crowd tonight. We have an agenda that will probably run us a while, so we won't get started at 5:30. We always request that we have a local minister, preacher. I never know the right nomenclature, so I use minister, but they're kind enough oftentimes to show up and voice our prayer, which we always believe is important. And so minister, pastor, preacher Joel Kinney is here, and we're going to ask him to voice our prayer, and then if we can, we'll lean on Councilwoman, I guess it's council person in America today, but Councilwoman Smith will allow her to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Eternal Father, we are so grateful for this community that we are a part of. And Father, we ask that your richest blessing would be upon us. Father, I ask that you continue to guide and direct our counsel. And Father, we come to you today also asking that you would send us rain. Father, you are the God of all gods. You are in control of all things. And so, Father, we just come today praising you and thanking you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Would you chief please join me in the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Didn't work, pretty much know all the ministers now. We'll go ahead and open up the regular meeting of the Solid Waste Authority and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Trustee Huebler?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. First action item, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding Republic Trash Service proposal. I know it's written that way, but I am inclined, I don't anticipate we'll have any action tonight. We've talked about having a couple of just general meetings, and I anticipate we'll have those. That will not change tonight. We'll have discussion on this also, but I anticipate at least setting up a couple of public meetings. Don had, kind of in the back of his head, he was getting ready to set up his ward meeting, and so I think he was going to try to time that out with these meetings so we can give everybody a chance to voice their opinion on this change. And I'm going to go ahead and let Steve bring us up to date and give us an overview on what's happened since the last time we talked about it.
Yeah, Council, good evening. If you want to scroll down, you'll see the proposal in a detailed form, in a chart there. I'd like to introduce Carrie, Tracy, and Roscoe with Republic Trash Services. We talked about this a couple weeks ago at our meeting, the possibility of bringing curbside recycling, single stream recycling to the community, and what that would entail, which would entail trash services and taking over everything for our community, and offering this at what cost would it be. And so they have put together a proposal, as you can see, that would not be an increase to our citizens, that would offer municipal service, hiring possibly our staff to run this service, curbside recycling, turning our current transfer station into a transcyclery, and having potential of, as more of Western Oklahoma takes on recycling, us to get a rebate as a city financially, purchasing through a third party or through our bidding process, our trucks, containers, and other things, investing $2 million in new trucks and new service to our community, and for a 10-year contract. So it would be an amendment to our current contract. So I'd like to introduce the folks to walk you through what they've put together for us and answer questions and concerns about this. This would be a great service to our community, something we have not seen, that no community out here sees. So Carrie, Tracy?
We'll tag team it. Well, basically, I mean, it shows we have currently the current service detail along with the pricing and the proposed service detail. Starting off, we have the residential polycart service, once a week pickup. Currently, it's $12.40. The proposed would be $12.07. And now, the proposed also, in addition to the residential polycart, you would also have curbside recycling polycart. So there's basically, you're adding another polycart. Below shows the...
Polycart isn't the same, no charge.
Correct, yeah. So basically, both of those would be the 1207 total.
I want to go into here since we stopped. The size of these polycarts, you mentioned it last time, but for people that are here, these, our current polycarts are how many gallons
95?
95 is what we have as well.
currently? So they're a different look though.
They are, some of them might be a little bit different shape compared to, depending on what type of vendor you use to purchase them from. Some of them have a little bit of a different shape, some of them are shorter and wider, some of them are taller and a little bit thinner, but 95 gallons is the capacity.
Okay, that's what I want to check. Thank you guys.
Right below that is listed for the outside residential polycart service. Currently, it's $18.35. For the same exact service, we're proposing $17.33 per month. Additional polycart currently is $6, and it would be the same cost for is what we're proposing, so $6. What we've done for the commercial, it's instead of lining out each detail, we kind of just showed like an example of what the current yardage is for the commercial. And we just used an example of one 3-yard container service once a week. Currently it's $32.20 per month. And so what we are proposing is one 3-yard container service one time per week, $31.29. Now we would be doing some consolidation. Basically, there's several sites that have multiple 3-yard containers, so we would be consolidating some of those. So if we have, for example, one 3-yard container service 2 times a week, or 2 3-yard container service 1 time per week each, $64.39 is the current price. And so what we would do is we would convert those to one 6-yard container service 1 time per week, and it would be $62.57 is the proposed price.
I just want to talk a little bit about that conversion type thing. The type of service that we are looking at providing for the commercial is the front load service. So with the front load service, you can have larger containers. Right now, currently, you guys just have 3-yard containers. And so some people may have multiple 3-yard containers going multiple times per week. What the front load service does allow is for a larger container up to an 8 cubic yard container, which is good, especially if you have the room for it. But also, if you can get a larger container and go less frequently, it's always beneficial to the customer, to everybody. If the trash truck's on your property less, it's on your roads less. So it's just wanted to point that out, kind of where that conversion comes from.
Next, we have the industrial. The industrial is a little bit tricky. Essentially, the pricing wouldn't change. It's going to be the same. The setup and the structure is what we would kind of change on that. I know currently there's different fees listed out for the industrial. We would basically kind of streamline those fees. So the cost, essentially, it's going to be the same. It's just going to be set up a little bit differently. So currently the municipal buildings, I know that there's several containers located at several different facilities. There would be no charge for any of those locations, excluding the roll-offs. I think there's a few roll-offs that are at a couple of the locations. So really, I mean, as far as the commercial accounts, we could do, the businesses, they could participate in the polycart recycling. At some point, we will have a route set up for them. But until that time happens, we would definitely do the polycart recycling.
With the commercial recycling, until we did implement the actual commercial front load containers, would be the goal is to get the front load type containers, the same as like trash containers. It would be a goal of ours to have a commercial route come through here. But until we can build that up and know exactly how many of the commercial customers are willing to participate in that, that would be something that we would kind of look at down the road. But until that point, they can definitely do the polycart, just like the residential collection. And as far as converting the containers, I'm sorry, I kind of got off track a little bit, but The way we do that is by yardage. We go by what their yardage is per week, and that's what we try to convert the containers to. And as far as each customer needing different types of containers or different styles or different frequencies, we would kind of have to do it like a case by case, maybe look at each business one by one and kind of work with them individually to figure out what exactly it is that they need.
Next, we have basically what we would be doing as far as for the recycling revenue sharing, I guess. After the initial baseline participation is met, and that would be something that we would establish during the negotiations at that time. After the initial baseline participation is met, Clinton would share in recycling revenues through every additional ton that flows through the Clinton Transcyclery. So basically, not only would you be sharing in for the tonnage, for what the city of Clinton is bringing in, but every town that, we add on and bring through that Transcyclery, you would share in. So,
Even our own, anything that we brought in, so.
I guess the last thing on the list, well, I guess we have two more. Basically, Republic Services, we would hire, I know that we talked to the facilities crew today. They were very nice to let us come in. And so, but we would hire any of those who are willing to come and work for our company, and of course, qualified with all of the criteria. So, and then do you have
Their equipment. I know we kind of discussed this last time about the equipment, you guys' existing equipment. We would help facilitate that. We work with a third-party vendor to actually purchase your equipment, or however you guys prefer to handle that. We definitely will help you guys with that process.
I guess that sums it up. Basically, all of this, we would be investing $2 million, and that would be for the polycarts, new trucks, and
Conversion of the recycling, or the transfer station, which is the biggest part of this whole proposal, is the Transcyclery. I know we talked about it a little bit last time. There is not one currently in anywhere in Oklahoma, actually, especially western Oklahoma. What this does is, since we have a transfer station not too far from here, it allows us to convert that to a transfer station for recyclables. So we would be using that as a hub to transport all of our recyclables from western Oklahoma and then transport it to Oklahoma City.
So to make this clear, you're going to invest $2 million to make this financial investment work. You take over trash and take over our recycling, curbside, single streams, everything in one barrel, not to separate it. But as after this happens, you would actively seek other communities to get involved with this recycling, and we would reap the benefits from that in a rebate program,
Yes.
financially.
yes.
How long would conversion of cars and bins, how do you anticipate that would go as far as the conversion to new polycards?
Like, what type of time frame?
In other words, if you started the first of a month,
In the past, we'll have an outside contractor. We'll pick certain areas and do an area at a time. And the last one I was a part of was 14,000, and they did it in about 6 weeks, trash and recycling.
Excuse me, regular trash pickup is once a week, but the recycles are every other week.
Yes.
I had a friend who asked me, he said, I think probably some of the stream, 40–60% of the stream is recyclables. When we were trying to talk to him because we went to a football game. He said he's got kids, he's got a family, he can see his recyclables filling up faster than his other. What options, let's say I'm a person who'd like to get another recycling bin, is there a way where I can do that? I can pay, if I want to, some kind of an extra fee for another recycle bin, and then you just put those out when the recycle day is?
Yes, and eventually that's the hopes that a lot of people will have more recyclables than trash. Because technically most of the things that you do throw away are recyclable. So that is a goal for everybody, to have maybe a larger recyclable container.
If that happened, then would you start doing once a week there?
Yeah, if we need to, eventually we can relook at things if it becomes something that it's, community-wide. But typically, in this situation right now, we're doing every other week, so we would add the additional containers until we got to a point where we did need to maybe either add an extra route or add the additional pickups. We would love to go every week.
Now, would that increase our cost tremendously, or?
That would probably be something that we'd have to look at that time, which is gonna be a long time down the road before we could even get to that point. But we could definitely, it would be something that we would talk about.
But the more recycling,
Uh-huh.
the commodity of recycling,
Yeah.
we would get rebates anyway.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You'll find a 96-gallon container goes pretty well if you smash your jug down, break your boxes down. You can go a while with a 95-gallon cart.
I had a person who owned a business, it's a restaurant, and he was interested, so if in the beginning, he would get a poly cart, he could utilize that, and that would be a way where he could recycle, because he was kind of the same way, except for the foodstuffs and the napkins off the table, pretty much everything he does.
Yeah.
Questions of the council?
I've got a list, but it may be best for, if we're going to have a town meeting, and we have some type of community involved, citizen involved, it may be more appropriate for that type of venue. I do have, back on the September 4th, when we had our meeting last, you said the viability of this was going to be, was going to depend on Weatherford taking our solid trash at that time. Recyclables were going to be here, and our solid waste would be taken to Weatherford at that time.
Right.
Does Republic own the recycling transfer station there? Do they own the?
We own the transfer station in Weatherford, yes. We, in the one here, we do own the facility, but we lease the land.
Right.
But in Weatherford, we own the property and the facility.
And you currently have a contract with the city of Weatherford to transport their waste to Oklahoma City.
Uh-huh.
What happens if that particular contract is null and void at that time? How does that affect the viability of
Right.
our program?
So if Weatherford's disposal was to go away, we would be fine. Right now, we're supporting 2 transfer stations with your disposal along with Weatherford's, but we also have disposal of our own that we bring in. We service several communities in the area and also subscription work, so we are more than able to support that transfer station.
So the program will not cease to exist based on the fact of something that another community does.
Correct.
I have a list. Can
Here,
I ask
and you know,
them? Is that okay?
we're prepared to answer
Okay.
anything that you want now, but however
We
you
may
feel
have
more
questions
comfortable.
that people in the audience
Okay.
have, so we may be.
I visited with a lot of my constituents these last few days, and they had some of these questions, and I, of course, came up with some of that the containers that we have currently are dumpsters and our poly carts. You will replace those with new product that has your name, your insignia, and logo.
Right.
You said that there's going to be is there a third party going to be involved in the purchase of those particular items, the dumpsters and the poly carts? Are the poly carts recyclable?
You know, we can check to see. We've kind of been doing some checking with some of our existing vendors to see what we can offer. They kind of are doing some work for us too, to see what we can do. But yeah, there's something you can definitely do with them.
And the dumpsters that are currently side
Side
Done.
loading.
are they going to be scrapped then, or how? I mean,
We cannot use those because we don't have the equipment to use them. But depending on what the third party wants to do with them, we can look at several different ones. We can look at several different options. But if all else fails, then yes, they could be scrapped, which is worth a lot too right now. But
can I ask you who the third party is?
you know, I honestly do not know. I know that we have a couple of contracts with people that we use all over the nation, but I can get that for you.
Jason, we may have to, as a commodity that the city owns, talking to Ryan, we may have to publicize and take public bids on our equipment.
Okay,
No, I think we're gonna have to do that probably, which that third party could bid,
right.
Right.
and open up so we get the most bang for our buck.
Yeah, will that include trucks also, these two?
And that'll include trucks as well.
And we can help you guys in any way, try to
Sure.
do that.
What do you, Republic is a nationwide company, very large, second in the nation, as I see. And what is the estimated tonnage of like recycling products for a community the size of Clinton? You obviously have done this in other parts of the United States. What is our estimated tonnage of recyclables, do you think, for a town of this size?
The last one I did, you know, we went from pretty much very little recycling in the little tubs to
Mhm.
the cars. I think we started out with 2 routes, about 6 ton a day is what they were pulling. So you're looking at, you know, 12 times 10, so about 120 tons. We were pulling out about 14,000 homes per pickup, yeah. So that's basically 2 weeks.
What we estimated, I'll tell you what we estimated just off of kind of some existing customers in other states, or just kind of an average. We estimate that you guys will have about 500 tons maybe going into it. And that's just to start with. So that's was a rough estimate.
Wait a way
Does that sound?
to,
Yeah.
way to calculate, assume how many tons that we generate a month in Clinton?
You guys do an annual tonnage of about 14,000 total right now.
And
Of trash and everything,
Yeah,
that's total.
that's-
That does include your roll-offs, that includes your commercial, that includes everything.
you could, assuming 50% participation, you know.
It could be a huge drop-off, yeah.
Are you anticipating 50? What do you, are you just?
We actually, I believe we anticipated, we did a ramp up. I believe we started at 30% because that seems to be a standard for starting. And then I think it was year 5, we anticipated a 60%. So it's really hard to judge that until you get into it, where the education comes into factor, which I know we've kind of talked about a little bit. The more you can educate the residents, the public, the more successful it's gonna be, and it's gonna help. So, and we talked about starting with the schools. The schools is gonna be a huge part of that, because right now, a lot of the kids are learning about exactly this right here, and they're going home and asking questions, and that's where will be a big thing for us, is to start educating those kids, and then they can educate the parents, and so it's just ongoing.
Are there fees assessed for recyclables that are unclean or have been, let's say that I dump my garbage in the wrong bin and I push it out there and it's picked up by your truck, and let's say that happens on a large scale. How does that?
Really, on residential, it's gonna be a little bit different, because you're picking up smaller containers and dumping in a bigger truck. Usually, you won't have as much you'll have a contamination problem, but it's a little bit easier to deal with. Now, when you go to the commercial routes, when you have larger containers, or larger items, or larger things can go into it, you run into a little bit more problems there. But as far as contamination, what they'll do is if we foresee like a problem, it's just an ongoing problem with maybe just a particular resident, we will then bring it to the city, make you guys aware of it, and then address it either directly, depending on how you guys would like it handled, address it directly with the resident or with you guys, and have you guys address it with the resident. And at some point, if it is an ongoing problem, we may have to pull their recycling container, because if it's causing problems for everybody else and ruining everybody else's hard work at recycling, then that's not really fair, so.
It's my understanding that the residential solid waste will be, the dumpsters, the alley access dumpsters will be no longer, everybody will be turned to polycarts. Will the polycarts still be located in the same general area? Will you be picking up through the alley, or will they be picked up curbside?
They will be picked up curbside.
You can't do it in the alley at all.
We had to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I mention that, I work out of town, and I go through Thomas every once in a while, and you guys provide a service to Thomas.
Yes.
And they
They have that.
had alley access and had dumpsters that were in the alley. They currently have a lot of blue polycarts
Yes. Aren't they
with
beautiful?
All American, or it's Republic, but they have a
Yeah,
bunch of them with
yeah.
a different name throughout the alleys.
Uh-huh.
And I wondered if that was gonna be a similar scenario in Clinton.
Tom is currently not the automated, they're just the rear load, so you just got to drive into the back truck and dump them versus over the top. That's something we'll have to look at, you know, if there's enough room to be able to get the truck down there and reach out to the side and get it and pick it up.
I'm going on, but some of those little things, some of those logistic things like that are a big concern to some of my constituents.
Right.
And I'm just asking those questions to try and making sure that we're on the same page.
And that's something too that, you know, we will have to look at certain things. If you guys prefer for some of them to be in alleys, we can look at that. I will say we do try to steer away from alleys just because a lot of times there's safety hazards in alleys that we really, as a company, really try not to get involved in. Yes, Thomas does have the alley service. But again, we would prefer for them to be curbside. And just like Roscoe pointed out, they are serviced with a different type of truck. The truck that we are wanting to bring in here is much more efficient, and which is what allows us to get the job done efficiently for the price that we're proposing to you.
What truck you're bringing in here, is it a side load?
It is an automated side load truck for the residential, and for commercial, it will be a front load truck.
The Clinton Public School System currently has newspaper recycling bins and magazine recycling bins in front of their facilities. And they receive, my understanding, they receive some monetary compensation from those newspaper bins.
Right.
And I have several people that put their newspapers and recyclables, paper recyclables in those bins. They wanted to know if in fact you do take over the recycling or provide a recycling service for us, what is going to happen to those particular bins?
We are okay with you guys keeping those bins. We, first off, would never want to take away from the schools. That would not be something we would want to do. So if the schools want to keep those containers there, they're more than welcome to, and continue with however they're doing the program. In the future, if they decide that they do want to start a program with us, we're open to that as well. But like I said, we want to do whatever's going to benefit the school the most. We would never want to take away from that, ever.
I have a question, I'm gonna ask it again.
You're fine.
What about leaving the brown dumpsters? What about that? Because common sense would say, if, I'm thinking, you have less stops equals less time, and that's saving money. Now, if you're going curbside with recycling, could you not offer them a poly cart to push towards the front of the house, or a poly cart in the back in the alley to put recyclables? But why would you be insistent on taking those dumpsters away? It doesn't seem like it'd be cost effective for you.
Well, now, remember that the dumpsters are serviced by a different type of truck than what the residents are serviced by. So typically, your commercial are gonna be dense in one area, and then you're gonna have your residential dense areas. So when that commercial truck has to break off to go pick up a container that's in the middle of a residential area, that kind of cuts down on the productivity, but it kind of goes back to where we were kind of trying to avoid the alleys. If it's something that is a must, that you really want to keep those containers in some of the alleys, we have also talked about looking at 300-gallon polycarts, which is just a huge polycart, which can be serviced by the same type of truck that the residents are serviced by.
And the way you guys service some of them silo cans is violation of our policy. We're the right side of the road only, we can't cross the road.
And that was my next, we couldn't come in here and service you guys how you guys are doing it today. Our company policy wouldn't allow us to do it. So that's another reason why we can't provide service to the brown containers you have now.
I run that by.
It's a safety policy that we have. We just do not provide that type of service with the side load containers that you guys have. It's against our company policy. He can probably go into a little bit more detail on it.
We service the right side, so we don't have to cross traffic, and with your truck servicing the left side, you're always facing oncoming traffic.
Apartment complexes, multi-resident complexes that currently have a side dumped bin that may or may not have a location for a front-loading bin. How would that be serviced?
We would have to take a look at it. We would have to do case by case, and figure out what type of service we could provide to those people. There's some, we service all over the country, so we've seen pretty much any situation that you can think of or come up with. I guarantee you we've seen it probably. But we would just have to take a look at it, and we're open to discussion on anything. As far as the multi-unit, we've done in some locations where we've given each person a poly card, like depending on how the apartment complex is laid out and set up. We've done just the front load containers. Sometimes we've done multiple smaller front load containers throughout the parking lot. Sometimes we'll do one centralized location for the container. It would just be one of those things where we would just go out and take a look at it. And it would be something too that we would work closely with the apartment, the complex, as well as the city to suit the needs of the customer.
I drove down most of the alleys in my ward this weekend, and unfortunately I noticed a lot of large items next to those dumpsters. And 71% of the people that I talk to are for this concept, and they're for the change. Of course, 43% of those 71% recycle already. And I think there are more that would recycle if given the opportunity for a dumpster that they do not have to take.
Convenient.
The convenience part of it. But as I'm driving through the alleys, I'm looking at some of the items that are stacked next to dumpsters. We take those things out. What do people do with those large items? Are we going to continue to have our place over here at Glenn Smith and Gary Freeway
Yes.
available for people to,
Yes.
at no additional charge?
No, we'll still have that. We'll work with them on that.
Yeah, and that's something too, that's kind of some of the details still that would need to be worked out. But we also discussed, you guys were going to possibly keep that there as well as at the transcyclery. We would also probably keep a roll-off on hand, just like if a resident needed to drop off something, and we would probably just go ahead and take it right there from them. As going back to that, what you just mentioned, having the curbside polycart service is a way to clean up your community. Not that your guys is bad, but it is a cleaner type of service. Everything's contained into a cart. When you have those alley containers, what we've found is that a lot of stuff gets just tossed, and because they think it's in an alley, nobody's going to see it, and so they just start throwing stuff, which is another reason why we do try to avoid the alley service as well. The curbside is the cleanest, most efficient way to service residents.
And that was a concern of a majority of my constituents that said, I go out to place a bag of garbage in there, and there are X something in there, and I have no room. Or, there are things in there that they weren't responsible for. And they would like to just have, a lot of them would like to have just their own, be responsible for their own separate container.
I agree with you. I've seen the containers, my father-in-law's container, he has the dumpster in the alley, and I've seen his container be completely overfilled, and we don't have anywhere to put trash in. We had to put trash in it, and none of it was ours. So, I mean, it's a great point.
And last but not least, the most important part, in my opinion, and I know this are the people sitting in the back of the room that have families. You mentioned to me that, you just mentioned that they will possibly be hired. That what is our contingent if, can we cross-train people if they decide they don't want to make this move and they have longevity and they want to continue their public service with our great community? Can we provide some cross-training and possibly find some areas for?
If there's an opening, I mean, we have to be realistic that we don't want to put pressure on, put a person in a place that we don't need people. I mean, I just want to be honest. I mean, yes, we want to offer those folks an opportunity to move forward, hopefully with Republic, because be honest, Republic pays better wages, has better benefits, profit sharing, 401K. It's a really good, they want to, in their criteria, I can tell you their criteria that they're asking, our folks meet that criteria. So if they want to move forward on, could there be a possibility of a person going to another department? Possibly, but there also has to be an opening. I mean, we don't want to put a burden on the general fund by just sending all those employees into the parks or street departments, and there's really nothing for them to do except collect the paycheck. We have to be diligent in how we operate the city, and I think that's what we're trying to do with this. We try to be honest with them to let them know that we want them to have an opportunity to go. We're looking at ways to keep open our central garage, so there's that opportunity too. So there's a lot of logistics, even internally, we're trying to work out, but I think the biggest thing is they have an opportunity to move forward, which that we had a meeting today, they want those employees. I mean, but yes, we want to keep the facility open down here on Glenn Smith and still offer those same services, but enhance our services, but also help those employees if we roll over their OMRF retirement into a 401K. If they want to retire early and double dip, we have the ability to work with them on that. You know, as a council, can approve some of those things. So there's some of those things that can possibly happen as well.
Jump in here. I know you guys have probably done this before. This isn't your first rodeo. What do you find percentage-wise? Employees, is there a number you throw out? I know it's hard to find good employees, and we have good employees. So I know in the business I'm in, if I can find a body that'll show up for work and do a great job, it's not a problem. What's your take on that?
Typically, we always want to hire the current employees. One, they're doing the job, so they know it, which is the best of both worlds, one that's currently doing it. But if we can get them to meet our criteria, which is just a background check, drug test, we want to hire them. I mean, and we do that in any community we take over. So as long as they're meeting that, we hire them. But I couldn't give you an actual percentage because it really varies. But the majority of the time, as long as they meet the requirements of our company and our policies, then we hire them. And there has been so many great comments about your staff. I can't even begin to tell you that you've got great guys back there, and so we would love to have them. We really would. He's got another question.
I have one more, and then
You're fine.
I'm completely done. We have areas that are outside, like for instance, from our golf course, from the golf course road east to Daughtery. We have residential homes that set quite a ways back from our road. They currently have the brown dumpsters. Those will be obviously replaced with poly carts. Is that?
Some of those, and like that, we do have some, subscription work out in this area where they do have, they're real load containers here, but that do have dumpsters. But being as we are bringing in the front load system, it will be a little bit more difficult, like I was saying a while ago, to venture off, to break them off from the dense area to go pick those up. But if it's something that we needed to look at, we definitely could. Because sometimes when you have, I know what you're talking about, they have larger property acreage. Some of those do require a little bit bigger containers. So if that's something that we need to look at, we will. And again, too, the 300-gallon carts. That's always something that we can potentially look at doing as well, too.
And you did say the 300-gallon carts go up the side, or the smaller poly cart, the same big truck. And
Right.
so if you got them on the side of the road as opposed to the front,
Right.
that might have to be at the end of the cul-de-sac.
And it's basically a huge poly cart. I mean, it's big.
And one of the questions I had was, what improvements are we looking at making to the Glenn Smith site? That was one of the questions that I had. Are there some improvements that you're going to do there?
I think that's really with the city. That's really not there. They'll have the containers, but that's really where the city has to be involved in the improvements there. Which I think we want to continue to leave that facility open for the service of the community with limbs and, extra dumpings and recyclables. So I think that, and we need to talk about a future of that and how we
It stays pretty
clean
clean,
that up.
I mean, it does, but.
We want to maintain that, and it always will be something we want to maintain.
Along those lines, I know it's Louis' place, and Louis got a few years with the company. I don't see Louis.
He's-
No, he's back there. back there hugging the hat. What, do you anticipate, you would, like Louis, would he stay with the city? I mean, are you anticipating?
I was anticipating,
So
yes,
there's gonna
that,
be
that
some
position,
situations
that
where-
position would stay with the city. We would have a central garage person stay with the city to work on vehicles and equipment. And then the drivers, they're looking for drivers and mechanics, and we've got those. And hopefully, you know, I mean, beyond those two positions we have, the rest of them, I don't have a position really open yet, unless something in the city opens, you know. But we'd always, obviously, if something did open up, we would definitely, these are one of the reasons why this is such a great opportunity, because we've got good staff doing a great job. And I think that we want to echo that a lot, you know. I appreciate that.
Phyllis?
That was my only one that I had.
I have a couple other questions, but it will be for staff at a later time. Thank you very much for answering
Yeah,
those.
and we're available, if you guys think of something, please feel free to ask.
We're not gonna let you off the hook yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
You just thought you were done.
Okay.
I had a minister in California when I lived there, and he would go, now, I'm gonna finish with this, and then he would go another 15, I'm gonna finish with this, so, as has been our custom, and we always try to take comments and questions from the audience. I know we have a lot of people here tonight to facilitate our reporters, be they radio, newspaper, if you would, just identify yourself and your name so that they can take that down. Start over here on the right.
I'm Jerry Douglas, and I have kind of a personal question. My parents are elderly, and I know you deal with this all over the country, so this is only information for me. My dad is unable to carry trash out. My mother takes 2 or 3 small parcels to the alley per day. She could not roll the poly cart to the curb. How is that dealt with?
We do provide handicap service, or service for somebody who is not able to roll the poly cart out. All we ask is that you get a note from a doctor provided to the city, and the city will therefore turn it over to us and let us know that it needs to be a house-side service. So we will go up to the driveway or by the house, wherever the container is, and the driver will actually get the container, roll it down to the truck, and put it back in place.
Very good. And the geographical uphill, downhill
Yes.
becomes an issue to people that may not be handicapped, but they can't,
Right,
in inclement weather, can't get up and down.
right.
Same kind of thing, the doctor's slip.
Yep, and you just provide it to the city, and then they will provide us with a list of addresses that have that type of house-side service.
And I heard you address a right-hand pickup only, I believe, because of safety. Are you gonna loop the streets, or the people on the left hand have to bring them to the right hand?
No.
We'll loop.
Okay. I didn't hear the
Yeah.
full response to that.
The way we route things, keeping those things in mind, safety is our #1 priority as a company. He is a route guru over here, but he can tell you a little bit more as far as the routing portions of it, but.
Thank you.
Next. How about back there? Let us
Tommy
know.
Kevin.
Give us your name. I know that.
I have been talking to, some people have been talking to me, and they're going up for it. They're concerned about, like, for example, how sturdy are those cars in case of wind?
When, obviously we live in Oklahoma, and western Oklahoma being as it's crazy windy here most of the time, they are very sturdy. The lid, as long as you close the lid, obviously you need to make sure that's closed, those cars will withstand the wind. Sometimes now, we do have our occasional just out of control windy days where you might have a little bit of a problem, but you guys currently have carts now. Have you seen that be an issue? So it wouldn't really be any different than.
Okay, and what about dogs and cats?
They wouldn't be able to get into it. As long as you close the lid does have to be closed. Now, if you leave the lid open, then you might have a little bit of a problem.
The people are going to have to separate the trash from the recyclable, correct? themselves?
The residents will need to separate it, They will put trash in one container, and then the recycling will go in a separate container.
The people I have talked to, Billy's not for that.
Well,
Bobby, do
Yes,
you have any other questions for them, Bobby? Do you have any other questions for them? Tommy, I'm sorry, I did that. Tommy, do you have any other questions
No.
for him? Okay. And we take into account your comment, but we want to keep moving forward. So if you have a question, definitely want to wait on it. Next one. As I said, we will have a couple of meetings. There'll be open meetings. We'll probably set them up, I'm thinking Ward 1, 2, unless somebody says, has a better idea of Ward 3, 4. They'll be totally open meetings, so if you can't make one or the other, we'll try to get those dates out here shortly.
I have one question. You know, people that, following up on what Jason said, that out in the rural area, well, most of the people, I think, in the rural areas have brown dumpsters. I think we have to put the 300-gallon containers out there because of the wind problem. I think that Western Oklahoma winds would blow over regular polycarbonate.
Yeah, like out in the open, where it's out. It's possible. A lot of times they don't necessarily blow over unless they're left out empty and they don't have anything in them, then they may blow over because they don't have anything to weigh them down. Typically, if they have trash in them, they may roll a little bit, and then if they roll into something, they may fall over, but typically, we really don't have much of a problem with it. And again, it's up to the resident too to make sure that it's somewhat secured, it's not left where if it does, if something is gonna knock it over as far as if it rolls a little bit or just set up next to something that to keep it from doing it.
Do you find most of your people, do they keep the poly carts inside or outside, or is it strictly up to?
It's strictly up to, some cities have ordinances saying you can't see the poly cart. It's really kind of up to you guys. We don't really necessarily care. You will run into your occasional resident who wants to leave it down at the curb year-round. So that's not really the best idea, but typically we prefer for it to be pulled back and then for you guys would too. But if it's beside the house, in their garage, in their backyard, that's completely up to the resident or you guys.
The recyclable route is going to be a totally separate route. I would just ask that you entertain the idea of putting the poly carts in the alleys. I think that would make a lot of people, change for a lot of people is very difficult sometimes, and they're used to having those dumpsters back there. In Mr. Douglas's scenario, I visited with his parents. She's able to take the trash and dump it in the poly cart. The problem is when poly cart has to be maneuvered towards the road. If we could provide the service in Clinton that I see as being provided in the community of Thomas, I think that would be a great deal.
We will entertain it and look at it, but, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this also.
I think it'd have to be an alley by alley circumstance.
Yeah.
I don't think we can say yes or no to all of them. I think we have to look at each one.
Just for example, I know the alley behind, my father-in-law's house on Dolomite, and it's open, like, it's a good alley, like, it's a good, clean alley, but not all of them look like that. So, something like that we might be able to do, but it would have to definitely be alley by alley, so, I mean, we just have to take a look at it.
Maybe we could do something could we do something to help the cause? I mean, so you're saying that there's maybe some, I don't want to get too much into it, but there's some issues with the alleys. Possibly could we do something to help that scenario?
Well, we could do this. We could have Roscoe, and maybe some of our other, supervisors go out and look at the alleys, see which ones are absolutely not maybe, see which ones may be a possibility, some that are saying, okay, yeah, we can do this. We're open to looking at them and discussing it. And again, I think that, we will be having several meetings going forward, so we can look into it for you and maybe have an answer when we come back maybe.
I have something about the alleys, and this may put the kibosh to it right now. Most of the alleys have overhead services, telephone, electric, cable vision, and what have you. Right now, typically in a block, there's 3 big dumpsters. So there's 3 spots that a truck has to pick up over. You have 7 houses on this side of the block, 7 houses on this side of the block. You have 14 places that the truck has to stop. There's not enough clearance above you. We have problems right now with 3 dumpsters in the alley, and the trucks have missed spot in the dumpster, the big dumpster tearing stuff down.
Which is exactly the reason
That's,
why we try to
that's
stay out
something
of
you got,
yards.
and not everything comes off of a pole. Cablevision telephone, a lot of times will mid-span tap, and somebody set the dumpster right there or a poly dart right there. First time they lift it up, they rip that, hang that main messenger cable, and they snap off the poles. We do this a lot. That's why the 3 or 2 dumpsters, the big dumpsters are in the position in the alleys are where they're at because there's a clear spot there. You get every customer on that block, 7 customers on each side, putting their poly cart wherever they want to put it. They have no control, And you don't know until the first time they lift the truck up. And the guy in the truck is sitting there running his hydraulics dumped up there. He's not looking out there to see if they're hanging telephone or cable vision or electrical service.
And really, if you think about what the example you're using, and there's lots of different, there's a different story for each situation, but for what you're talking about, it's actually going to be easier if you've got a poly cart at the house, in the garage, however a person wants to do it. She's going to have the ability to make a few steps to that poly cart, and then she's going to be assisted to get that poly cart out. So I don't know, at least in that scenario, I'm sure we come up with one or two more than it does.
That's a great point, and he made a great point too about the alleys. That is one of the biggest reasons why we try to stay out of the alleys, is all the wires and cables and everything going across. It's a safety hazard, and again, we as a company truly focus on safety. It's a big priority to us.
I would say we're looking for input. I think when you talk to the public, I think 70% is probably a good number, maybe more, that want to try to recycle. I would say, looking at what you're doing, somebody had said, well, you can make money at this. What goes into recycling doesn't go into your landfill, and your landfill is a very expensive operation, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So it has a direct correlation to what doesn't go there, and that makes sense business-wise from somebody who's not on the inside. So any other questions from the audience? We'll have another section later on for general questions for the city, but if it's related to this particular action item, if you have any questions, we would try to take them at this time. Not seeing any.
Mr. Mayor, I totally agree. I think that we need to have, I planned on having a work, I mentioned you on a work meeting. But I think from the input that I've gotten from the people in the community, that they're supportive of this concept. I think we need to direct our city manager and city attorney to be working on an agreement to bring back to the council at a later date after we have 1 or maybe 2 board meetings. And I will put that in the form of a motion that we authorize Steve to work with the city attorney in preparing an agreement to present to the council after we have our public hearings.
For action at that time.
For action at that time. That's my motion.
Trustee Rudolph?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Hewland?
I would rather have the meetings prior to the, so exactly what are we saying?
Well, I would just say this, it will take some time to work out logistics. I mean, it's not gonna happen within 2 weeks, we get back. Their legal team, our legal team, all the logistics of amending the contract. While we're doing that, as the feedback comes in, some of the details you mentioned tonight, other details, we can add those, but if you like this concept, it would allow us to keep things flowing. Again, you would have to vote on that contract, so if the things in the community said no, then you'd have that ability.
If you don't proceed right now, we're looking at maybe in a month having 2 meetings, then another month to prepare the agreement, then it's gonna be January the 1st. We need to be moving right now. This is not approving anything.
And I would say, in what Don's talking about, we need to be moving now because there are going to be some devil in the details. There's going to be some things that we're going to need to I think it would be much better, you know, if we had the contract, people can look at it, because part of the problem is if you say, well, okay, we're gonna do this, and then we'll get the contract. Well, then you're pretty much gonna have to let the people look at your contract, figure out what's going on. So we can kind of, if we get that to a point where it's solidified, we can get that out to the public and take input on that also.
I agree with that. Call for the question.
Yeah, I think it's,
Yes.
and as we said, and I was very specific, this does not commit us to a yes or no, it commits us to allow them to work together legal department-wise, so that we can look what we come up with. I would say yes.
You vote yes, okay.
Appreciate the visitors, we look forward to seeing you at the meetings, and always, we love visitors, it's fun to look out there and see a lot of people. We have some regulars that are out there, and you know who you are, and we appreciate them too. We always appreciate our visitors. I would say and reiterate what Steve has said. It's an unusual thing. We have a great trash service. We have people that care. We have great employees. This has no reflection on what's going on. I know in talking to some of the water guys, and I've talked to all of them, some of the sewer guys, you know, some of them see an opportunity that they didn't have with the city of Clinton. They see training and things like that. I think it's up to each person individually. But hopefully that's available for the public. I know we've dealt with them long enough. I like the answers they give us when we say we have someone who needs assistance with their garbage. Not all companies are that way. Not all companies are going to take the time to roll somebody out of a truck and assist. So I like the attitude they have, so hopefully that'll work out good for our people also. But we have outstanding people. The city of Clinton is blessed. City manager's report for the Solid Waste Authority.
I have nothing.
Audience participation under Solid Waste Authority. This would be if you have anything else in the way of solid waste. We will have a general, under the city of Clinton for general questions, comments, statements at that point. Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Trustee Doolin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rhodes?
Yes.
And Chair.
Yes. Moving on to the Industrial Authority, we'll open it up. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Trustee Doolin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rhodes? And Chair.
Yes. We have one action item. Thanks, guys. Robinson Edition covenant, and I didn't read that. My apologies. Consider covenants for the Robinson Edition. Very exciting.
I read those last week, and I
Did you find anything? Because you're probably the most
no,
qualified.
everything looked fine, but how wide are those lots, Steve?
Well, I mean, they're over, the average one is a little over 6,000 square feet and,
85, 90,
85, 90.
between 83 and 85.
And some as deep as 125, 150.
Do you want me to go get that?
No,
Okay.
there was one typo I noticed in there that's been corrected.
Yeah, we corrected that.
And the lot line was changed from 15 to 25.
25, to meet our code currently.
I'd make the motion to approve the code.
Any questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from anyone in the audience related to this particular action item? Have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Rhodes?
Yes.
Trustee Doolin?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Yes. And Chairman?
Yes. City manager's report for the Industrial Authority.
Well, we're gonna add this, folks, we're gonna add this to the plat, get it filed up with the counties. We spoke with Joe Ridley actually today, and we are close to the first phase of construction documents to get that out to bid. I'll bring that back in 2 weeks, get authorization to go to bid on the dirt work, part portion of it. So we'll continue that effort moving forward. We're kind of excited about getting this thing moving as quickly as possible. This covenant's along the plat, where kind of these things that have to be put in place prior to that. So we'll wrap that up and bring it back in 2 more weeks on the first phase of the construction. So we're very excited about getting this off the ground. That's really all I have.
Audience participation under the Industrial Authority. Your opportunity to ask a question about anything relating to the Industrial Authority. As I said, we'll have a general opportunity under the City Council agenda. Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting of the Industrial Authority.
Second.
Trustee Smith? Yes. Trustee Rhodes?
Yes.
And Chairman.
Yes, moving on to the city council, we'll go ahead and open up the regular meeting of the Clinton City Council and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So,
Second.
Councilwoman Smith? Yes. Councilman Fielder?
Yes.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. First action item, consider discuss closure of alleyway at site of the new fire station location. Steve, give us just an overview. I know we've all got this information.
Yeah, council, I mean, you approved the project and everything, but this is required by statute to have actual action done by the council to have the alley way abandoned so we can move forward. And then these next two items go hand in hand, is the potential move the utility easements, with PSO, AT&T, and all those folks. And so, project's continuing, but we have to, logistics, we have to wrap up.
Well, we need to do it because I was down there today on another matter that I had to talk to Steve about. We probably ought to do that since they've already put all the water and sewer pipes over the alley. But, yeah.
You're going back now.
But I did, and whenever we get ready to do the paving, whatever we do, I assume we will, there's one big building that we don't own. We need to make certain that we go up to his property line and get everything,
Oh, we are. In fact, part of the easement was, we did a survey for our electrical contractor to tie in that new service into his building, so we're working with them pretty closely.
Because see, actually, that alley's 20 feet wide, 10 feet wide, 4 lots of him, because we still need to resurface up to.
Oh, we're planning on, cleaning that up, yeah, I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Questions or comments from anyone else on the council related to this particular action item? Anyone in the audience related to this particular action item? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent we've already done it. Consider and discuss closure of alleyway at the site of the fire station.
I so live.
Second.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
Councilman Fielder?
Yes.
Councilwoman Smith? Yes. And Mayor.
Yes. Next action item, dedication of the utility easement for the new fire station location. Steve, do you have anything to add to what you already?
Well, you'll see on the surveys in there, we had to change the utility easements to around the property to fit all the needs for, again, AT&T, PSO, our own utilities. So we had a survey completed. Projects, as you know, started and we're laying lines. PSO is working with us right now on the new service, but we need to have this utility dedicated by the council so we can get everything wrapped up with them.
Any questions or comments from council? Questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to approve the dedication of the utility for the fire station location.
Second.
Councilwoman Smith? Yes. Councilman Fielder?
Yes.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. City manager's report for the city of Clinton.
Two items tonight. We appreciate everybody's participation. Foss had some issues, as you know, last Friday. Some technical computer issues when I talked to Ronnie on the phone. So we sent out the Blackboard Connect to let people know. And we got good participation. We got back, and they were back on within actually about 12, 13 hours. They were back on early Saturday, so we get that notification back out. So those things will continue. So the water situation hasn't changed. We're still waiting. Hopefully by the 24th, we will see a report. We're hoping on that on the well out by Haggard Road, and we've got working with our well drillers to rehab those, rehab some wells on site or flat. So that continues. The other thing, our airport projects have begun. So if you're out and about, quite a bit of construction going on our hangar aprons as well as our tarmac. So if you're out and about, you'll see quite a bit of work going on out there. So over the next, dealing with a little drainage issue on the hangar apron, but typical construction, and we're drying that area out, but we'll see those things completed over the next couple of months.
I'd like to see some water standing around.
It's good, yeah,
Yes.
we need some more there, so.
Yeah,
That's all I have
We'd
tonight.
like some more. Thank you. Audience participation for any questions for the, council, any questions for the city manager? Not seeing any audience participation. The city of Clinton, this would be your general catch-all. If you have any questions or comments you'd like to make, related to the city of Clinton. This would be your opportunity.
I've got no thanks. Steve Jones. In case everybody didn't notice, 2 weeks ago, we had a nice little bike rally here in town, and I want to thank the city council for allowing us the use of the rodeo grounds. Everything came off real well. We did not have any incidents. I know people was concerned about having beer at a city park, but everything went off well. The chief come down and visited us Saturday, I think it was, or Friday?
Right.
Friday, when you heard the music on the test. And everything went off well. We had no incidents. Had a lot of good positive feedback. We had people from Texas and Ohio and California that stopped in and spent the weekend here. Some of them down there at the park and some of them in their local hotels. We'd like to do it again next year, and in January I'll come to the council to try to get on the agenda to ask for another special events permit. But we are going to increase the size of it next year. We're going to have bands on Friday night and Saturday night instead of just Saturday night. And hopefully we'll have 2,000 people there instead of what we had this year. We got a lot of good feedback from all across the state. We had members from the Red Knights chapters from Texas, 15 and 16, all 7 chapters here in Oklahoma, and 1 from Ohio. They showed up for this event. Next year it'll be bigger. And I appreciate the use. We had some great sponsors, great local sponsors. I want to mention Sport Chassis, local business right here in town, took care of us with the stage, no cost for us. We were able to donate a check today to Multi-County Youth that's going to supply food at the emergency youth shelter for 6 months. So it was successful.
That's great.
Steve, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny. You're on the council, you serve the people. You're off the council, you still serve. So
I would really like to grow this thing. I'm not as big as Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue, which starts next weekend, which I'm going to go to. It started in 2000 with 180 people, and last year there was 400,000 people showed up in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I don't want it to be that big, but I would like to see 10,000 people show up here, double the size of this community for a weekend.
I know you have commitment to multi-county, and I think it's commendable the effort that you and others put into putting this together. I heard several good things about motorcycle people around town, which is always interesting.
That's what, Sunday evening, I went and ate at one of our local restaurants here, and they said, "Did you hear about the big bike rally?" I said, "There's a big brawl down there." I said, "Really? Really?" I said, "I didn't hear anything about it on the scanner. In fact, I was there until we closed it up." There was nothing, but that's a word of mouth. Everybody thought that it's Hollister, California, type event, and it was not. We had a lot of good people show up. The fact that we left it open to the public and to under 21 helped keep it under control that way, actually, because everybody was on their best behavior, and we had a good time. And if you missed it, you missed some good bands. We're going to try to get 2 of those bands back next year, but one of them won't come back. They've got other engagements at that time of the year. But we were just lucky to get them this year because they had canceled out. But they always do an event over on the eastern side of the state at the same time, but they got canceled out this year, so they had to come here. But we'll have possibly 5 bands here next year, 2 on Friday night and 3 on Saturday.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Any?
Thank you to Republicans, thank you to
Yes.
the city,
Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you very much.
our citizens who came out, thank you.
Look forward to, I said when we did the work with Severn Trent, it's nice, we see Severn Trent people quite often. And so it's one of those things where you start looking around, it's nice to have, and I look up. Is he back there? No, well, actually I said that the one night I don't see him back there, I pointed out. Well, hey, he's entitled. I think he's been to every meeting. And oftentimes we ask him questions, but we appreciate you guys being here too. I think it is an exemplary of hopefully the relationship you'll provide with us. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second it. Councilmember